The strict constitution. Who can be Leonor's partner? Picture the silence of a military courtyard just before sunrise. Boots aligned. Breath controlled. Day after day of training has taught Spain's future queen discipline under pressure. But here is the detail almost nobody outside the palace truly understands. Long before Princess Leonor chooses a path of love, the constitution has already drawn its boundaries. This is Spain's monarchy under pressure, not from protest, not from scandal, but from the quiet weight of rules designed to prevent either. A single glance reveals the burden of centuries resting on youthful shoulders. Behind the crown lies a heartbeat, steady yet measured under the gaze of a nation that remembers its history too well to leave the future to chance. Because when it comes to Leonor's future partner, Spain does not rely on romance. It relies on law. Imagine the echo of footsteps in a palace corridor, each step brushing past portraits of monarchs whose personal choices once shaped, and sometimes shattered, nations. Those echoes are not decorative. They are warnings. And here's the truth rarely spoken aloud. In Spain, who the future queen may love is not merely personal. It is constitutional. But what happens when the cameras stop rolling? Behind closed doors, the story takes a sharper turn. The strict constitution. Who can be Leonor's partner? This title is not just a phrase, it is Spain's rehearsal for continuity itself. Because Spain's monarchy is not a fairy tale institution. It is a constitutional mechanism, rebuilt carefully after dictatorship, designed to stabilize democracy rather than dominate it. Every safeguard surrounding the crown exists for one reason: to ensure that no single individual, not even the future queen, can endanger national balance. This detail is often misunderstood outside Spain. Many assume there is a secret list of forbidden names, or rigid rules rooted in outdated tradition. In reality, the constitution is more precise, and more modern, than that. It does not dictate who Leonor must love. It defines who Spain can afford to place beside its future head of state. And that distinction matters more than it appears. Observers forget how this connects directly to Spain's constitutional framework. The monarchy is not above politics by accident. It is kept neutral by design. Any future partner must respect that neutrality, embody it, and never complicate it. National identity is woven into these rules, binding past and present in a single moment. Here is the first rhetorical cliffhanger. What if personal affection points in a direction the Constitution cannot follow? The answer is uncomfortable, but clear. Spain's constitutional order makes provision for that very scenario. If an heir chooses a partner who does not meet constitutional requirements, political neutrality, legal compatibility, institutional suitability, the consequence is not scandal. It is succession adjustment. Calm, legal, final. This is where many misunderstand restraint as cruelty. In reality, restraint is protection. The phrase on the thumbnail isn't just design, it's the monarchy's hidden tension made visible. Strict rules. What seemed like a headline is, in truth, Spain's continuity compressed into words. Notice how rarely officials speculate publicly about Leonor's personal life. That silence is not evasive. It is structural. The institution refuses to personalize what must remain constitutional. Body language becomes a clue here. Watch Leonor at public events. The composure, the lack of improvisation, the discipline in her interactions. These are not personality traits alone. They are preparation for a life in which every association carries weight. Few realize how this subtle discipline ties into centuries of royal protocol refined through modern law. Media reports often frame this topic as hypothetical, distant, almost academic. But inside the monarchy, it is foundational. Advisors, legal experts, and constitutional scholars understand that the future partner of the queen is not a private addition to the family, but a public variable in governance. And yet, the crown carries deeper implications than anyone dares to admit. Spain has lived through instability, through polarization, through moments where institutions failed to contain division. The Constitution learned from that history. It built guardrails around the monarchy so that love, ambition, or ideology could never again destabilize the state. But the real test begins when tradition collides with modern expectation. Today's audiences expect transparency, freedom, emotional authenticity. They struggle with the idea that love could ever be regulated by law. And just when it seems irreconcilable, a deeper question emerges. Can a modern constitutional monarchy survive without such limits? Spain's answer is quietly confident: no institution survives without boundaries. This is rarely explained in full context. The Constitution does not demand perfection from Leonor's future partner. It demands alignment, respect for democratic order, absence of political entanglement, commitment to institutional neutrality, and the ability to strengthen, never complicate, the monarchy's role as a unifying symbol. This is where ceremony turns into consequence, the crown's continuity at stake. The midpoint is not pause, but escalation, continuity under sharper examination. As Leonor matures, as public interest grows, as speculation inevitably intensifies, the Constitution stands unmoved. It does not adapt to pressure. Pressure adapts to it. Spain's monarchy is not just ceremony, it is the living thread of constitutional continuity. Crowds may cheer a future wedding. Media may celebrate romance. But the institution will be watching something else entirely: stability. Public reaction often reveals more in silence than applause. And beneath that silence lies a clear message. The future queen's private life will always be guided by public responsibility. This moment, subtle as it seems, foreshadows challenges still to come. Because when the time arrives, when Leonor's future partner is no longer hypothetical, Spain will not ask whether the choice is popular. It will ask whether the choice protects continuity. This is where the monarchy's survival shifts from ritual to reality. And as Spain looks forward, the monarchy's future hangs in delicate balance, not because of who Leonor loves, but because of what the Constitution demands. The story continues, and the stakes only grow sharper. The next chapter reveals pressures even more intense than today's. Expectations more personal, decisions more irreversible. And as the nation watches, one truth will remain unchanged. In Spain, love may be powerful. But the Constitution is decisive. And yet, even within this firm constitutional structure, there is a space deliberately left undefined, a silence that speaks louder than any written rule. Because the Constitution does not name the ideal partner. It does not describe a personality, a background, or a future role in emotional terms. Instead, it outlines conditions, boundaries, principles. And in doing so, it reveals how carefully Spain has separated private life from public consequence. This is where the story becomes more nuanced than most headlines allow. Few realize how this subtle distinction ties into centuries of royal protocol adapted for a democratic age. In earlier eras, royal marriages were instruments of power. Alliances, treaties in human form. Spain rejected that model. What remains is not control for advantage, but control for neutrality. This detail is often misunderstood outside Spain. The future partner of Princess Leonor is not expected to rule, influence policy, or embody ideology. Quite the opposite. The ideal constitutional partner is almost invisible, present, supportive, and deliberately removed from political gravity. And here's the next question almost nobody asks: can invisibility itself become a burden? Behind closed doors, the story takes another turn. Because neutrality is not passive. It requires constant restraint. A future partner must navigate public curiosity, media pressure, and global attention without becoming a voice, a symbol, or a liability. That is not romance. That is discipline. Notice how the institution prepares for this long before it is needed. Silence is enforced. Speculation is neither encouraged nor denied. The absence of narrative is intentional. Every gesture echoes governance, reminding citizens that the crown stands above politics yet within law. This is where protocol becomes a clue. No casual appearances. No personal commentary. No blending of personal identity with public role. These are not social preferences. They are constitutional safeguards. And just when it seems abstract, a deeper question emerges. What happens if the public demands more than neutrality? Modern audiences crave visibility. They want stories, personalities, relatability. But monarchy survives not by satisfying curiosity, but by maintaining trust. And trust, in Spain's system, is built on predictability. The phrase on the thumbnail isn't just design, it's the monarchy's hidden tension made visible. Strict rules. Those rules exist not to restrict happiness, but to prevent ambiguity. This distinction matters more than it appears. Because ambiguity is dangerous for institutions built on continuity. A partner who speaks too freely, aligns too visibly, or symbolizes division, even unintentionally, introduces instability. Spain's constitution learned that lesson through history. National identity is woven into these safeguards, binding past and present in a single moment. This is where the midpoint escalation begins. But the real test begins here, where ceremony gives way to scrutiny. As Leonor grows older, speculation will intensify. Social media will invent narratives. External observers will project expectations shaped by other monarchies, other cultures, other assumptions. Spain's system will not bend to that pressure. The midpoint is not pause, but escalation, continuity under sharper examination. This is the moment where the future partner shifts from a theoretical question to a structural one. Advisors will not ask, is this person loved? They will ask, is this person compatible with constitutional neutrality? That question is unemotional, and deliberately so. And yet, the crown carries deeper implications than anyone dares to admit. Because choosing a partner under these conditions requires something rare, acceptance of secondary visibility. Of influence without authority. Of presence without voice. This is why the Constitution is strict. Not because it mistrusts Leonor. But because it refuses to gamble with Spain. Crowds may never see these calculations. They will see ceremonies, smiles, formal appearances. But beneath that surface, legitimacy is being measured quietly, relentlessly. This is where ceremony turns into consequence, the crown's continuity at stake. And just when it seems that law has answered everything, another cliffhanger emerges. What happens if love demands more space than the Constitution allows? The answer has existed all along, written without drama. The institution adapts. The line of succession adjusts. Continuity is preserved. This is rarely explained. In full context, Spain's monarchy survives not by forcing outcomes, but by allowing lawful ones. No crisis. No scandal. Just structure. Spain's monarchy is not just ceremony, it is the living thread of constitutional continuity. And that thread does not snap under pressure. It absorbs it. This moment, subtle as it seems, foreshadows challenges still to come. Because when the future partner finally appears, whenever that moment arrives, the public will focus on emotion. The institution will focus on stability. And in that difference lies the true meaning of Spain's strict rules. The story continues, and the stakes only grow sharper. What lies ahead may redefine Spain's monarchy in ways few anticipate, not through rebellion or romance, but through quiet adherence to law. And as Spain looks forward, one truth remains unchanged. The Constitution does not ask who Leonor loves. It asks what Spain can trust. And yet, even as that question hangs in the air, the Constitution does something unexpected. It does not rush to answer it. Instead, it waits. Because waiting, in Spain's monarchy, is not indecision. It is design. What seems like hesitation is, in fact, stability at work. This is rarely explained in full context. Spain's constitutional framework understands that premature certainty can be dangerous. By refusing to define Leonor's future partner too early, the institution preserves room for society to evolve, for political climates to shift, for expectations to mature. The rules stay firm, but the timing remains open. This detail matters more than it appears. Notice how the monarchy avoids projecting an image of inevitability. There is no narrative of destiny, no fairy tale timeline, no public pressure toward a particular outcome. Instead, there is preparation, legal, institutional, and symbolic. Preparation without prediction. Behind the scenes, constitutional advisors know that the most destabilizing force is not an unsuitable partner, but a rushed decision shaped by emotion, pressure, or public expectation. The strict rules exist precisely to slow that momentum. And here's the detail almost nobody considers. By placing conditions rather than names into law, the Constitution shifts responsibility away from personalities and onto principles. It ensures that when a choice is eventually made, it will be judged against law, not opinion. Every gesture echoes governance, reminding citizens that the crown stands above politics yet within law. This is where public reaction becomes revealing. There is curiosity, yes. Speculation, certainly. But there is also restraint. A quiet understanding, deeply ingrained in Spain's modern political culture, that some matters are not meant to be hurried. Silence, here, is institutional language. And beneath that silence, the monarchy's continuity is being quietly tested. Because the true measure of these strict rules is not whether they restrict, but whether they endure without fracture. So far, they have. This is where the climax arrives, not in spectacle, but in subtle legitimacy. The future partner of Princess Leonor will not be chosen to impress. Will not be elevated to reassure critics. Will not be introduced to satisfy curiosity. That absence of urgency is the signal. This is the moment where ceremony turns into consequence, the crown's continuity at stake. Spain's monarchy is not just ceremony, it is the living thread of constitutional continuity. And continuity depends on something deeply unglamorous: predictability. The Constitution ensures that no single relationship, no matter how meaningful, can destabilize the institution. It places the nation's long-term interest above every short-term narrative. This moment, subtle as it seems, foreshadows challenges still to come. Because when the world finally meets Leonor's future partner, the real story will not be who that person is, but how little the Constitution needs to change to accommodate them. That will be the true test. And here comes the final forward-looking tension. The next chapter will not be written in romance or rebellion, but in quiet compliance. In a decision that feels almost anticlimactic, precisely because the rules have done their work. The story continues, and the stakes only grow sharper. In the next episode, the crown faces a challenge unlike any before, not from outside pressure, but from the moment when personal life can no longer remain abstract. And when that moment arrives, Spain will not be watching for drama. It will be watching for stability. Because in this monarchy, strict rules are not a sign of weakness. They are the reason the crown still stands.